In all the worlds of the 10 directions reside Tathagatas of the 3 times. Before each of you, lions among humans, I prostrate joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of this aspiration to noble deeds, all conquerors appear vividly in my mind. With as many bodies as there are atoms in all lands, I prostrate to all you conquerors. In each atom a Buddha as numberless as atoms, all in the midst of the heirs of the Buddhas. Thus I conceive of this Dharma Dhatu as completely filled with you conquerors in this way, with infinite oceans of praise and oceans of diverse melodies. I sing the excellent qualities of all you conquerors. And praise all of you gone to bliss with the best flowers and best garlands, best music, ointments, and excellent parasols, finest lamps and superior incense I offer to you, conquerors, with excellent garments and best fragrances, and sandalwood powder heap high as Mount Meru. All wondrous offerings perfectly arranged I offer to you, conquerors. These vast and unequal offerings to each and every one of you, conquerors, with the power of conviction and noble deeds, I prostrate and offer to all you, conquerors. All the harmful deeds that I have done, with my body, speech, and mind, under the power of desire, hatred, and ignorance. I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in all the meritorious deeds of all conquerors in the 10 directions, and the heirs of the Buddha, solitary realizers, heroes still in training and beyond, and all wandering beings. You who are lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who have unobstructedly attained Buddhahood through the stages of Bodhi. All you who are my protectors, please turn the unexcelled wheel of Dharma. With palms together, I earnestly beseech you who may intend to manifest final nirvana. Please remain for as many eons as there are atoms in all the world, for the happiness and well-being of all wandering beings. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, four continents, sun and moon. I visualize as a Buddha land and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure land. To the Gurus who possess the three Kayas, I offer the outer, inner, secret, and dustness offerings. With my body, wealth, and all phenomenal existence, please grant the unsurpassed supreme attainment. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate it all to complete Bodhi. Om Guru Devata Kini Ranamindala Prate Chaso. Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles in accordance with the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Doje chante dele naroda ita pupa doje dimbun kadin chunde zavela mesha sajula majida chuduna savada chuda jeje ke dange done zanenge. Dans des zones là, qui ont mis gawa do je chang pa je den kum pe sha da do ta do sang de kyo la ne chi chi lo shi tu je je ne ge no pa sa ne ge sem to de do do ga je je lo hong mo je je ne chang sang de ma de sa don po la ya sem jo ke no de ne pe ma ju ne je je ga go do ga de ma do go ra ge ye je se da de ge je la je she so guru be ma se ne 조기 이게 보관에도 순산제 분기 공원이 라센 조금 원순 동제 바자벨라메 샤블라소 Good morning and good evening to everyone. So we are now starting this section of the chapter on wisdom, where Shantideva will basically reiterate the teachings on no self and emptiness. So emptiness is an extension, a more profound understanding of the teaching on no self. So here, in a way, you could say, if I cannot understand, all that came before this, oh, this group says that, I say this, and then they say that, then I respond this way, then it's okay, because in this next section, Shantideva is not introducing anything new. It's reiterating his basic understanding, his core understanding of this teaching on no self and emptiness. So at the end of last class, in case you didn't catch or you were not here, I tried to give a quick overview of the teachings that the Buddha gave and on what is often translated as the four foundations of mindfulness. I don't know if it is understandable, if it is good, but if it is, it might be short enough for someone to just extract that particular segment and make them available on the YouTube channel, I think. But anyway, I don't need to translate that. But anyway, there, so again, a reminder, right? What are these four things? And these four things you could think, you could see them as, or you could understand that there are four areas. And the way they're arranged is four progressively more subtle areas that the Buddha recommended that you reflect on, you pay attention to. Because when you reflect on these four areas, when you pay attention to what's going on in these four areas, insight, understanding can arise. So these four areas is body or bodily processes is the first. Second is feeling. This feeling is talking about not like our emotions. This feeling is talking about the immediate reaction to our senses coming in contact with sense objects. Three basic feelings arises: like, dislike, and neutral. And so that's the second area. And so you can see how the second area is more subtle than the first area. The first area, the body, fairly obvious. But even the body, if we follow the way the Buddha recommended that we investigate or shine a light and put this body under a closer, a more detailed analysis, we'll see that the body is not just this, it's more than many, many different parts. So body, then feelings is the second. The third is mind. So not mind as a thing, but basically mental emotional processes is the third area. And the fourth is phenomena, meaning the basic building blocks of our experience. So in this arrangement into the four areas, you could say that what is body? Body is but. One way of looking at it, body is nothing other than the coming together of a specific collection of phenomena, dharmas, building blocks. So the building blocks of body, so to say, is divided into four types. These are often referred to as the four elements, meaning the building blocks or the qualities of body that provides solidity. Then the qualities of the physical quality of fluidity, the quality of motion or movement, and then the quality of temperature, heat. And so these are the four types of elements. Likewise, for feelings to occur and for mental emotional processes to unfold, different types of dharmas, different types of phenomena are at work. So like there's the dharma for like focus. There is also a dharma that is called like inattentiveness. There's a dharma of jealousy. There's a dharma of laziness. These are all basic building blocks then of the mental emotional type. So those are also dharmas. And depending on different systems of listing out the possible types of dharmas, sometimes you get a list of 51, sometimes 75, along those lines. This is because different Abhidharma systems have come up with different lists. In some ways, you could say like these lists of dharmas, especially the mental emotional dharmas, is the basis of what we might call Buddhist psychology. So there they go into how, oh, this particular emotion is a primary type of mind, and this particular emotion is a derivative when two of the primary combine, and then this arises. And so there's very interesting, sophisticated kind of presentations like that. So knowing which is primary and which is secondary then helps us to know how to handle them when they arise. That's one way to relate to those teachings that seek to clarify, what kinds of emotions are kind of primary and basic and present, or qualities of mind that are always present in operation whenever a perception is taking place, what kinds are derivative, and so on and so forth. So, if you take the time to study this and then use that to observe from moment to moment what is going on with our minds, then it can help us kind of disentangle ourselves from the web of messiness. in the context of Shantideva in this chapter, these four areas, body, feelings, mind, and phenomena, we could see them as a progression of how body is most obviously how our gross self-grasping is based on body. Then as you go along these four, phenomena is the least obvious basis for grasping to I arising. So body is the most obvious, phenomena is the most subtle. But nonetheless, Shantideva is pointing out, even with regards to seemingly impersonal basis, like phenomena, a sense of I can still mistakenly arise. So through these four areas, he's going to show how none of them can, in a valid way, be a basis for a correct I to arise, an unmistaken I to arise. He says, no, in all these four areas, no self can exist the way we think it exists. So here, he is not going to focus on what I mentioned at the end of last class, which is in various places, Buddha, when he talked about these four areas, these four foundations, these four reference points, he matches each of them with these four qualities that Buddha says is the nature of everything, which is the body is impure or unclean. The feelings are burdensome, as in suffering, dukkha. So the first one is asubha. Then feelings is dukkha. Then mind, right, is anicca, unreliable because it is inconstant. It is always changing, impermanent. And then finally, dharmas are not self. So the not self aspect is what Shantideva is going to focus on all four in this case. So we know that even the Buddha himself, when he taught these four foundations, these four reference points, he doesn't always just use the, oh, body is unclean, feelings are, burdensome. He doesn't always do that. One example is in the Anapanasati Sutta, the sutra on mindfulness of in-breath and out-breath, inhalation and exhalation. In that sutra, for example, he uses, Buddha says, okay, so technique is breath, is anchoring your attention or awareness on inhalation, exhalation, technique. Technique to be applied to what? Technique to be applied to these four areas. Then, when he begins the area of body, he actually doesn't emphasize the unclean nature of body. He doesn't do that. Instead, in the Anapanasati Sutta, he emphasizes to tranquil, to calm bodily formations, meaning calm the both gross and subtle busyness of the body, so that you calm the body, you ease the body, so that then a body at ease, a body that is not triggered, a body that is not burning, can put the mind in a good place to develop virtuous mental qualities. So that's how the Buddha used this focus on the body. So he did not talk at all about how the body is unclean, or how the body consists of all these parts and none of these parts are desirable, and so on and so forth.
In another sutra called another sutra, also a sutra on meditation, called the mindfulness anchored on the body, kaya kata sati, mindfulness anchored on the body sutra. There again, you see the Buddha treating this topic of body. He begins there by recommending a set of practices that first, again, calm and eases the body. Then from there, he teaches us how to understand the body while it's moving, while it's seated, while standing, while laying down. So they're emphasizing the body in different positions. Then he talks about the unclean. So in stages, he deals with all aspects of body. Then to body as just a gathering of phenomena of the four properties: solidity, fluidity, movement, and temperature or heat. So anyway, here, using the outline provided by Kempo Kunpel, we can, let me just give you that in case you want to mark those sections. So verses 78 to 87 is the body, and then 88 to 101 is feelings, Vedana. Then mind is 102 to 105. Then phenomena starts in 106. In the discussion on phenomena, he goes from there again into a refutation mode. So now let's look at this section on body, starting with verses 78. So here again in Khenpo Kumpel's outline, he says 78 to 84 is an analysis or a examination of the body in general. So I'm just going to read now first from 78 to 84 to this kind of a general examination of the body. Then followed by 85 and 86 is specific examination of the physical parts that constitute this body. But first he says it's a general examination of the body, 78 to 84. What we call the body is not feet or shins. The body likewise is not thighs or loins. It is not the belly, nor indeed the back. And from the chest and arms the body is not formed. The body is not ribs or hands, armpits, shoulders, bowels, or entrails. It is not the head, and it is not the throat. What is the body then in all of this? If the body spreads itself and with the members coincides, its parts indeed are present in those parts. But where does body in itself abide? But if the body, single and entire, is present in the hands and other members, however many parts there are, the hands and all the rest, you'll find an equal quantity of bodies. If body is not outside or within its parts, how is it then residing in its members? And since it is not other than its parts, how can you say that it exists at all? Thus there is no body. It is through illusion, with regards to hands and other parts, that body as a notion is conceived, just as on account of its specific shape, a pile of stones is taken for a man. As long as the conditions are assembled, the body will appear to be a man. As long as all the parts are likewise present, a body will appear therein. So this is 78 to 84. Yeah? Basically, 83 and 84 is Shantideva talking about Indian scarecrows. Our scarecrows, or at least the scarecrows in the West that we learn about, is usually a stick, two stick, almost like built like a cross. And then put some hay around the sticks, and then put a shirt on that, and then put a hat on top to be the head, and like that, scarecrow. So apparently scarecrows in India, it's a pile of stones made to resemble a person, and that will scare away birds from coming to eat the rice that is ripe. So this is what this stone business is about in 83 and 84. Yeah, so 80, I'll go back to 74, but I think looking at 83, 84 first, basically, so here it says, there is no body. It is through illusion, I'm reading from 83, with regards to the hands and other parts, that then body as a concept, as a notion, as an idea is conceived. That's crucial. So from 74 up to there, it is to make this point. So even, like outside the specific context of Dharma, of Buddhism, even just the way we use this word in English, I don't know, in Chinese and Spanish, body is really an abstraction, such as when we say healthy body image, unhealthy body image, the body is an abstraction. What we have here is, all these physical parts. Then on the basis of these physical parts, we have this idea of, this concept of, body. Then from there, desirable or undesirable, judgment. Then, healthy body image, unhealthy body image. But what we have here are flesh, blood, muscles, bones, veins, all of that, in the next, like verses 84, 85, Shantideva takes it even further. He says, even when we say, okay, body is an abstraction, because what there is, there's hands, there, for example, he says actually even the hand is an abstraction because there are fingers, fingers, 5 fingers, and a palm. Then he says, well, even finger is an abstraction. What you call finger is the skin, hair, then again the bones, and so on and so forth. And then he says, down to like the basic building blocks, even those are actually an abstraction. There are no partless parts. All the parts consist of further parts, which consist of further parts, which consist of further parts. All these parts, you can break them down to smaller units, to smaller units, to smaller units, to smaller units. But all of us are being scared, like those crows, because of the stones piled together in a certain way, because of the stick and the hay and the shirt and the hat put together in a certain way. Then we become deceived by the appearance of a thing that we call a person. But this person, when you go searching for it, with regards to the physical form, because the physical form is the first thing often that clues us into something being there. So this is the first body. The physical form is what often clues us into, hey, there's something there, there's someone there. Then when someone there, we think, oh, there's a person there. But in fact, like that rope in the dark room that we mistake as snake, likewise this person. Likewise this person. When you go searching for this person, you simply cannot find that person. Are we saying that person does not exist? No. The person exists by imputation, by designation, by the power of confusion. My confusion and your confusion props me up. So I'm going to read a little bit from Khenpo Kumpel's commentary on the verses 78 and 79, just to give you a sense. So this section is more to be applied in a contemplative way, not just intellectually, but in a more contemplative way as in, in a more formal session of sitting down and reflecting on, this body. Does it exist in this way? Does it exist in that way? What is this body? So in that more contemplative way. So Khenpo Kumpel says, what we call body is a mere imputation. It to the degree that it exists as a projection. It does not exist inherently. And he says, our reason for saying this is that if a body which is recognized or apprehended as a single, partless whole, complete with all its sense faculties, if that truly exists, if the body truly exists like that, as a single entity, then he says, then any part of this single entity, this body, must be fully present there. He says, but that's not the case, because the foot, the shins, the calves, they are not the body. The thighs, the hips, the waist, the loins, the belly, the back, none of this is the body. Hence we name these different parts. In none of these parts can we find this whole body that we think of as a whole, as a singular thing. And then, Shantideva, Khenpo Kumpel as well says, so if you cut a finger off, if the finger was the body, if you cut the finger off, does the body now become what? Gone? Yes, so in these verses here, basically, yeah, 78 to 82, right? Shantideva is having us, again, he's speaking, right, first and foremost to his audience. Right? So his audience, first of all, has a certain understanding of things are either singular or multiple. If it is singular, it cannot be multiple. If it is multiple, it cannot be singular. So he's playing with this idea of like, so is a body a singular thing or many things? And what is going on in 78 to 82 is he's showing how it cannot be a singular. Neither can it be a multiple. Then sometimes we say, sometimes like this body itself is I. Then sometimes we say my body, right? So then it's like, oh, my body. Then there are two things now. The body that is on, and then there's an I. Where is this I? He's saying. Is this I outside of this body? Or is this I inside of the body? And is this I in the middle between the outside and the inside? So he's raising this as, ways to kind of, I would say, short circuit, to mess with, in a way, how the different contradictory ways in which, in one day's experience of this body, he's trying to point out to me, what he's trying to point out to us is that we have all these contradictory ways that we think of this body, we relate to this body. But yet, underlying all of that, we have this kind of belief, blind belief, that the body is real. Yeah, so for sure, like if you look at Campbell Kumpel's commentary and other commentaries, he wrote his commentary based on also the Indian commentaries, right? So 78 to 82, he's going to use, like the logic that Shantideva's audience is used to. And frankly, I can say, it may or may not be convincing. why the body cannot be one and cannot be many. But for me, nonetheless, what these verses are pointing out to is in fact how all the contradictory ways that I myself relate to this body. Sometimes I say my body. Sometimes the body itself is the I. Sometimes I feel like it's one thing. Sometimes I think that it's many things. Sometimes I behave like it is real. Sometimes I behave like it is not real. So when we just look at that, we can see how, despite all the uncertainty, despite all the contradictory ways we relate to this body, somehow, underneath all of it, there's this strong sense or abiding sense that it's real. And not only is it real, but this is who I am. We identify with it. We latch onto it. We grasp it as I. And therein is the problem. There is where dukkha arises. As a side note, one thing I want to say, this is not about Shantideva's topic, but as a side note, I want to say, in my own experience, I have seen how, myself included, but now I don't think this way anymore. In wanting, to really understand this material, sometimes what can happen is we read this, right? Then we really want to understand the argument, the subtleties of these arguments, right? So then we begin to learn, the way that logic is used in Shantideva's time. So then we learn that logic system. Oh, it is this, then it is not this, then it's this, it's not this, right? No problem yet. But often where the problem is, we then think, oh, this is the logic system that I should, internalize. And then you think, oh, this means becoming a good Buddhist. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake. It is good to try to understand why Shantideva is talking this way. But if we think that we should then adopt this kind of logic, I think we've missed the bigger point that he's making. So that's why I started this section with 83. 83 is where the bigger point is, which says, thus there is no body. It is through illusion with regards to hands and other parts that the body as a notion, as a concept, is conceived, is produced. That is the take-home lesson. The logic system is simply Shantideva speaking on the same wavelength, so to say, as his audience. But I have seen many people who study these kinds of material adopt that particular logic and then think, oh, now I understand Buddha Dharma. But often what happens is they stop being able to talk to ordinary people whose logic system may or may not be like this. Then we insist, oh, first you have to accept this logic. Only when you accept this logic, then the Buddhist teachings make sense. That is a mistake. So although this is a side point, this is an important point, because otherwise, we say, oh, got to learn the Dharma, got to learn the Dharma, but we don't know how to learn the Dharma, then we waste a lot of time. If Shantideva was alive today, the point in the first two lines of stanza 83 doesn't change. That body is simply a projection and does not exist beyond as a concept. That point doesn't change if he was alive today. How he's going to convince who he's talking to about this point, verses 78 to 82, will change. He's not going to say, oh, wait. In order to understand 83, you have to follow my logic first. You have to change the way your logic is and adopt my logic. Then 83 would make sense. Then now we're saying, what the Buddha understood and what the Buddha saw, what the Buddha realized, is dependent on changing cultures, changing logic systems. No. What the Buddha directly realized is the nature of reality. And that point in 83 is part of that realization. But that logic of if it is one, it cannot be many. If it is many, it cannot be one. That is not part of that realization. That is just a way to communicate. So we have to know how to differentiate between these two. Okay, now let's take a short break.
Wage joare mum, wage joare mum. 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 Wage joare mum, wage joare Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware Mum 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 Om wage jware 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 wage jware
Okay, we are back. So let's see if there are any questions or comments. No? Okay, good. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. No, there isn't.
So
Yes.
part of the practice, maybe one of the first steps is just to observe the body, a little bit of awareness that the body's moving through its life without kind of letting go of that sense of the I, or having that awareness of this I, but letting go of it, kind of separating and watching with mindfulness, the movement of the body, like the 16 breaths, the first 4. Is that a way to apply?
Yeah, I sort of know where you're coming from, but that might not be the reference point of this group. So Linda is making some reference to the Anapanasati Sutra, and maybe a particular way of reading the Anapanasati Sutra as well. Of course, all readings are particular ways of reading the Anapanasati Sutra or interpreting the Anapanasati Sutra. But I think the more basic question of like, so how do we practice, I would say, right? Putting aside, I say never heard of Anapanasati, so just Shantideva here. So how do you practice this? I would say, give some attention to all the different and therefore contradictory ways in which we think of and conceive of this body, the relationship between this body and this sense of I, how often the I and the body is indistinguishable, how often the I seems to be the boss that owns the body, and how often sometimes the body seems to own the I. Sometimes I think when we go too quickly, too soon to not grasping, yeah, if we think, oh, I should not grasp, I should not feel I. Sometimes when we do that too quickly, too soon, that not grasping, that not having this sense of I, is not the result of realization. It's not the real result of understanding. It's the result of suppression. you know, like, oh, I'm not supposed to grasp, you know. Often we think that, you know, oh, I'm Buddhist, I'm not supposed to grasp. Actually, the Buddha never said that, you know, like, oh, you're Buddhist, you're not supposed to grasp. Oh, you're Buddhist, you're not supposed to fixate. That's not really, you know, what the Buddha recommends. The Buddha actually says, you need to look, you need to pay attention to how grasping is burdensome. So I think one way to translate suffering. Suffering is overused, I think, that word in English. But the sense of why Buddha says, oh, this is suffering, that is suffering, is it's burdensome. Right? And like any burdens, you can unload. That's what we call let go. So here I think this exercise at this point is it's not so much to quickly get to the conclusion, therefore no body, don't grasp. But rather, right, to see all the contradictory ways that we conceive of this body, that we relate to this body. Then, seeing all the contradictory ways, then we raise a bigger question, which is, how can this body be I? Or even, how can this body justifiably be the basis for me to call to court as a witness for the existence of I? So to say, right? So then when we begin to see and understand that, then naturally, you don't even have to say to yourself, don't fixate. Don't take your body to be I. You will naturally just not do that. Yes, Judy?
I've been wrestling with how to even ask this question, but if it has to do with the way we relate to other people. If we understand that we need to develop compassion relative to our relationships with others, and we recognize that our perception of others is based on projection, then how does understanding that others are made up of these parts and not an I, how does it help us change the way, given these other two factors, how does knowing that piece of it help us or change the way we might relate? I mean, how is that this particular piece?
This exercise is for you to apply to yourself.
But don't we have to apply it to
No.
I know that's the first
No.
step, but
No.
okay, we don't. So understanding that everybody else is made up of parts like we
No,
are is
no,
not.
that's not what's going on here.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 foundations of mindfulness is mindfulness of your own 4 sets, not other people's sets.
Okay.
You see, we think self-grasping and compassion are two unrelated things.
They're not.
They're not. So when you overcome your self-grasping, you don't have to worry about how you will relate to others.
Then it doesn't even apply.
Yeah, it doesn't even apply. Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Self-grasping is that which stands in the way of, effective compassion. So sometimes I think Mahayana tradition get in trouble because we get so obsessed with talking about compassion, about caring about others, blah, 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 all of that. Yeah, and we forget the basic work of overcoming self-grasping, fixating on self. So when we can release all those reasons and habits of us moment to moment giving rise to self-grasping, then we don't even need to look at others and say, oh, they are just a pile of stones. In fact, it's not so much about reducing them to a pile of stones or to sticks and hay and hat and old clothes. It's genuine compassion can pour out to them. How? Give out self-grasping first.
Thank you. Makes sense. Yes.
We should not think of them as opposites. Like the work of self-grasping is here, the work of compassion is over there. But that working on overcoming self-grasping is the very thing that makes it possible to have authentic compassion for others. Go ahead. Next.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I've been wondering or thinking along lines that Judy has expressed too, and I'm wondering. I think in general, like the end of the 8th verse dedication, for example, when that by understanding all phenomena as like illusion, I think I'm coming to appreciate more and more that the phenomena is this word. I assume there is also that word dharma that's there.
Yes.
I think I'm coming to understand I'm supposed to be thinking of these phenomena as one of these foundations that's as related to self rather than all external phenomena in the world, which is how I've tended to think of it in the 8th verse dedication, and therefore been applying that sort of notion to others, reducing other people's bodies or wagons or carts and elephants into parts, right? But all of that is really meant, if I understand you correctly, to be directed to myself.
Correct.
And exploring that. Okay.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. This is a revelation for me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is really, important. I think kind of these are what we would call, like Tibetans like to say this, like pith instructions, like they're not written down anywhere explicitly. But from our experience, this kind of understanding can arise that, when we say view all things as illusion, it's not really like go see like how others are illusion, but see how your illusions are illusions. View all phenomena, not external phenomena. This is not physics, much less metaphysics. This is self-healing, as some might say. This is changing our own minds, changing our own perception. Once we change our perception, once we change our own minds, once we defeat our own confusion and the kleshas that arise from that confusion, then, as we say in the Mahayana tradition, we all have Buddha natures, right? We all have Buddha nature. So in Buddha nature are all these Buddha qualities. So these Buddha qualities include compassion, patience, all of that, and all of that, can just function. Right now, what's stopping them from functioning is our confusion, our illusion, our grasping. So the primary work is to defeat that. Then, as a footnote, right, or as a reminder, Buddha says, okay, now that you want to do that work, don't forget it is for the benefit of all beings. That's why bodhicitta comes in. As a prevention against, once again, making that work of defeating self-grasping a new way to grasp. Then Buddha says, oh, bodhicitta is really, 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 really important. But then again, those of us who are more inclined to Mahayana things, rather than the basic vehicle, sometimes we get carried away with, oh, for the benefit of all beings, oh, for the sake of all beings, oh, liberating all beings, Then we're very busy concerning and worrying about how to save all beings, meanwhile, self-grasping is at work. Yes, go ahead.
So it's not so much that the lovely piece of music we hear is the sound of the Buddha. It's the fact that we believe that it is the Buddha's words or the Buddha's sounds. It's got to do not with what is out there and how it's made up or whether it's whatever it is. It's just our perception of how we view. Is
Can
that
you
correct?
re-ask that question? Restate?
Well, this we all sounds are Buddha sounds
Don't go in that direction. That's Vajrayana stuff. So let's limit ourselves to Shantideva language.
It's not so much what other things are. It's the way we perceive other things, how we believe other things, whether we have the understanding of it's really about our mind and how we are viewing all of this.
Yes. Yes.
And it can be applied. I mean, this is so simple, but so complicated, but it can be applied to everything.
Because everything that we perceive,
We perceive.
Yeah.
So basically this training is in our perception, our understanding, which is
how the heart responds.
yes,
We
which is
have
what
it.
you've been saying all along.
Yes. And then if you want to take that further, you can, for fun. From time to time you can say, actually, is there anything else? But don't go too far speculating there. Because this first thing, right, working on your own perception can only be powerful if we don't think that, meanwhile, there's all these other things that I should be working on.
It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because you have to see the power of the argument or the power of what the Buddha pointed out. It's like, whether there is or there isn't anything else out there, can you see that it first is dependent on this mind that is experiencing. Now, what do you know about this mind? How much control do you have of this mind? If you can see clearly that side, then that is enough for me to work on.
That opens up all the other.
Yes.
Thank you. This is helpful. Very.
But as the Zen tradition reminds us, yes, illusory, yes, overcome self-grasping, right? But you still have to chop wood, you still have to carry water, as what we put, or how we would say it, you still have to pay bills, you still have to turn up for jury duty. Furthermore, right, overcoming self-grasping, seeing the illusory nature of our experiences, it's not like, oh, just that, Buddha gave a very comprehensive way of training. So he talks about avoiding the 10 non-virtues, for example.
Sorry, Dr. I can repeat this.
What did you hear?
Furthermore, overcoming self-grasping, seeing the illusory nature of experience.
Is not like to be done, right, in the absence of other factors. The Buddha taught a comprehensive system where, yes, you understand that, yes, that you're working on that, but there are more concrete things that support it, such as pointing out the 10 non-virtues and how we have to cultivate intentionally avoiding the 10 non-virtues. Because even though, like, ultimately, yeah, it is a problem of self-grasping, it is a problem of not being able to relate to our experiences as illusory. Ultimately, it's because of that. But right now, reality is self-grasping for all of us is very strong. Very strong, really. And that self-grasping can come up in so many ways. For some, sometimes it's also not fixed. For some, sometimes that self-grasping comes out as arrogance. Sometimes the self-grasping manifests as lack of trust, whether trusting yourself or trusting others, lack of self-confidence. So our karmic baggage makes it really complicated. So Buddha also tells us there are the 10 non-virtues. As long as we have self-grasping, these 10 non-virtues, are going to affect us. They're going to affect others. So until, we can fully put to rest, defeat self-grasping, we have to see to work. So what is the method to overcome this self-grasping? Skillfully practicing, avoiding the 10 non-virtues. Like the 10 non-virtues, I want to use one example, that I often feel. It seems like of the 10, right? It is the least dangerous, it seems. Of the 10, it's the least dangerous, supposedly, right? And what am I talking about? It's the one related to what I call distracted speech, or often translated as idle talk. Distracted speech, idle talk, speech and talk that is lacking in carefulness. That, I think, of all the 10 non-virtues, seems the most innocent. But especially for you and I living in the times that we live in, and the places that we live in, I know we all live in different places, but I dare say, I think I've gone to most of wherever you all are coming from. In the times that we live in the places that we live in, most of the other 9, well, the mind, the 3 of the mind, maybe that is constantly going. So the 7 of the body. Out of those 7, the other 6, we are not like constantly at the risk of doing. We don't live in places where we have to decide, every 5 minutes, should I kill or should I not kill? Neither do we live in places where, every 7 minutes you're like, should I lie or should I not lie? But the idle speech is constant. Constant in terms of us speaking it and us listening to it. with that, so I've often used this example, but then I forget. Then whoever I teach also tend to forget, We say two people together talking, right? And we're talking about a third person. We're talking about third person. In fact, it doesn't even matter if we're talking positively or negatively about the third person in this scenario, because a third person, not the person we're talking about, but a random third person comes by and overhears, the conversation that these two people are having about, now in this case, the fourth person, overhear, whether it's something negative or something positive. Now, these two people might actually like this fourth person that is being talked about very much. But the person who happens to be there, not having any context, not having any understanding, might hear these two talking in negative terms about that person and then have some kind of impression. Oh, they say this about that person. And you walk away and you start to think, oh, this person is like this, like this, like that. Or if these two persons are talking about something seemingly positive about that person that is not here, again, this third person that happens to walk by, due to their own insecurities, their own stuff, even when they hear something positive, they react negatively. Instead of rejoicing, usually jealousy. And jealousy is often coming out of insecurities, our own insecurities. What is our own insecurity? Self-grasping. You see how all this becomes very messy very quickly. Suddenly your whole day, if you are the third person, gets ruined because you overheard something that you have no context, but whatever you overheard, you let it feed your own self-grasping. And the whole world has just been created. Like these days, the movies that have come out, Spider-Man, and what is the latest one? Doctor Strange, multiverse, right? I don't know how literally we have to believe in the multiverse, but experientially, we churn out multiple universes just simply based on hearsay. Then people that we thought we trusted, we stopped trusting. People that we thought were good, the rest of the day we think they are bad. All this, because of two people, as we say, just chit-chatting. Mindless speech. having said all of that, I should also say, then on another side of things, or to clarify, don't use this to silence people. Sometimes this happens, especially in communities, in spiritual communities. What I just spoke of is very true, how the mess we can get into when we are not mindful of our speech and not mindful of what we are hearing. But at the same time, we should not use this to silence people in the community. And when harm has occurred, things like that, then sometimes very unhealthy in religious, spiritual communities. We misuse that teaching to say, oh, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. Then secrets are covered, then bad things grow on bad things, and then before long, big scandals. So like in that teaching of Jigden Sungen, that collection called the Teachings to the Assembly, the great collection of the Teachings to the Assembly, somewhere he says, even when relating to your guru, you need to have common sense. If the guru seems to be doing things that are not right, you should not just blindly follow. And he says, worse, some people, in order to curry favor with the guru, self-grasping, not only will do things that are not right, but would like celebrate and encourage the guru to do things that are not right. He says, you need to have common sense. Then elsewhere in the same collection, he says, when the guru tells you something, you have to follow. So the two seems opposite, but they're not opposite. You have to practice both. I recently saw on Facebook, the source of infinite wisdom. Somebody posting an advice, about speech and about hearing that I thought, oh, very nice. It says 3 lines that I, actually it's more than that, but I can only remember these three, it says, ignore rumors, digest criticism, implement advice. Maybe don't need to completely ignore rumor, but be tentative. Whether positive rumor, negative rumor, just have equanimity towards it. Don't reject criticism. Don't suffer from indigestion of criticism. Try to digest criticism. What you can digest out of criticism, that becomes advice. Then implement. So today we end here, as usual, with the Bodhicitta dedication. Changjum sem chorim poche ma ge banam ge gyurchi ge banyam pa me bayam gong ne gong du bel war sho. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Gracias, Dr. Lai. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Thank
Gracias.
you.
Gracias.